All right, we welcome back to the show a great friend, former Vice President Mike Pence, who is a candidate for president. Didn't quite do it on the Kudlow show, but here he is a week or so later. It's okay. All is forgiven, you know. We're all charity here. Anyway, Mike Pence, Mr. Mike Pence, welcome back to the show. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Larry. And I told my team we have to do Kudlow in the first week.
I like that.
We announced less than a week ago, just outside Des Moines, Iowa, my intention to seek the Republican nomination for President of the United States. Because, Larry, you're like you, I think this country's in a lot of trouble. I think President Joe Biden has weakened America at home and abroad, where there's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan that's emboldened the enemies of freedom around the world, or the policies that have literally run our economy into a ditch. We have a crisis at our border. Inflation is up, as you know, better than most. Inflation is literally up more than 16% over the last 2.5 years. I welcome the pause by the Fed today, but we've got to have leadership that puts us back on a pathway of fiscal responsibility and reform, American leadership in the world, standing for traditional values, and we're stepping forward to offer our experience, not just as vice president, but my 4 years as governor, my 12 years leading House conservatives back in the day, even fighting against the big spenders in our own party when you and I first met. We're humbly offering our leadership to the American people, and we're excited to be in this race.
You're a conservative man of the year, 2005. I was the guy who wrote it up for Human Events magazine, which in those days was a big deal magazine. I don't think there's anybody more qualified than you. I mean, in all seriousness, I don't think there's anybody more qualified than you.
Thank you, Larry.
I don't think anybody has a stronger character than you have. I also want to say you did exactly the right thing in your Senate vote to ratify the election. That was correct. On this one, my former boss, your colleague, former colleague, Donald Trump, was wrong. Now, Trump had nice things to say about you last night in his speech. I'm sure you got wind of it. I want to ask you about that. Your fame is spreading widely. You got yourself your own editorial, this morning's Wall Street Journal. Mike Pence reads the Trump indictment. Quote, he can't defend the conduct, but he thinks the case is also political. I read the thing, and it made a lot of sense, but I didn't understand. Mr. Pence says even the inadvertent release of that kind of information could compromise our national security and the safety of our armed forces. But there was no release. I mean, Trump just waved a piece of paper in front of a couple of people. I'm not aware. If there was a release, that would be treasonous if it was to a foreign national. But I'm not aware that there was any release, and I didn't quite follow what you were talking about.
I'm not either, Larry, and what I was talking about was the nature that the handling of classified materials is of serious importance to the national security of the United States and also to the safety of our armed forces around the world. And when I looked at this indictment, I will tell you. Look, first and foremost, sad day for the country.
Yes. Yes.
I'm very proud of the 4 years of the Trump-Pence administration. I appreciate your support about the stand I took on the Constitution at the end.
Absolutely.
But in those 4 years,
actually, I supported you on damn near everything in the White House. You were a terrific veep.
Well, you did, and you were incredible to advancing our economic agenda. But look, I was saddened, as people around the country were, to see a former president of the United States literally indicted in a court of law. And no one's above the law, but I've said then and I've said since this first came to light that, look, every American's entitled to be presumed innocent until proven guilty, and that includes former President Trump is entitled to a presumption of innocence. That being said, I looked at this indictment over the weekend, and there are serious charges in this indictment. Now, the president's entitled to make his defense. I look forward to hearing what defense he might have, but I can't defend what is alleged for the reasons that I stated. I mean, as you know, I've got a son who's a captain in the Marine Corps. I've got a son-in-law who's a lieutenant in the Navy. I know the risk that, as I said, even inadvertent release of classified information about our national security could present to our armed forces. It's not alleged in this case, but it's one of the reasons why I think all of us need to take a breath. We need to let this process go forward. But I will also concede the fact, while I'll never diminish the importance of protecting the nation's secrets, after 7 years of politicization in the Justice Department, I find it hard to believe that politics didn't play a role here. I continue to demand that Attorney General Merrick Garland go before the American people and answer questions about what role, if any, he played or the administration played in the decision to move an unprecedented indictment against a former president of the United States. Look, Larry, we lived through it. We fought to get those tax cuts passed and roll back regulation, unleash energy under a hailstorm of what we now know was a completely bogus, fraudulent investigation supported by James Comey and the FBI for 2.5 years in the Russia hoax. We saw Hillary Clinton, who was accused of very similar behavior, be let off essentially without charges before the election.
And her husband before her.
And her husband before. And then we saw
the record. I just want to clarify because there's a very important piece in the Journal today. In addition to your piece, okay, there's a piece from Judicial Watch that walks through the Bill Clinton story, which in some extent is more significant for Trump. I mean, the Justice Department in 2010 argued the government's position was that Congress had decided that the president and the president alone decides what is a presidential record and what isn't. He may take with him whatever records he chooses. And then, of course, Judge in 2012, Amy Berman Jackson, who was an Obama nominee, said, since the president is completely entrusted with the management and even the disposal of presidential records during his time in office, it would be difficult for this court to conclude that Congress intended that he would have less authority to do what he pleases with what he considers to be his personal records.
Right.
I mean, I think the espionage thing makes no sense. I don't want to have our interview just about this. I just want to say
but it's fair, Larry.
This is part of the judicial record. And you yourself said here on this show, you said, we talked about that, vice presidents don't take classified documents with them.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So wait a second. The president today, Joe Biden, as vice president and senator, took documents with him.
Well, that's
They're strewn all over Washington, D.C. It's incredible.
Well, number one.
That, to me, is the big crime right now.
On the law and on the facts, former President Trump deserves his day in court.
Okay.
And he deserves to be able to make this case and make his defense. There are some people that want to prejudge this, some people that want to jump ahead for decisions that might follow a conviction. I'm not. Let's let the process work. Let's let the former president have his day in court. But as I said earlier today, I want to see the Department of Justice bring equal vigor to the investigation into President Biden's mishandling. I know something about this area. Vice presidents have no right to take classified documents. Okay, we resolved our issue. They found it was an innocent mistake at my residence, but it was a mistake. But Joe Biden not only has documents dating back to when he was vice president, but when he was a United States senator. Yeah. And the DOJ has got, the special counsel that's been appointed has got to move with equal vigor
no one can
to
find
investigate this. And
like,
also about
where's
Biden's
Waldo?
family.
Nobody can find this guy.
Well,
seriously, no one can find this guy.
Well, where is her? Where is the special counsel?
Yeah.
And the other piece, Larry, though, is for heaven's sakes, I mean, the collusion between big tech, big media, and over the Hunter Biden laptop in the days leading up to the 2020 campaign was a disgrace. And the FBI had that laptop, and they knew it was real. And the American people ought to be demanding that this DOJ move forward. Particularly, Senator Chuck Grassley is one of the most respected voices in Washington, D.C., and for him to come out and say he has a source that says there are tapes that will support potential bribery charges here. All of that, what we've got to see is
the FBI withheld, sir. The FBI withheld the 1023s. They're still withholding. Well, they're still withholding.
This is where it's a great gift that we have a Republican majority in the Congress, and they're pursuing all these things. But the answer here is
in your editorial
let
today,
the process work with regard to the former president. Let the cogs of justice turn, but let's have the same cogs of justice and law enforcement with Biden and his family.
You say in the editorial, named after you, Mike Pence reads the Trump, that you, if elected, you'll clean house. And the question I want to ask you, because you mentioned now you have what I'm calling the Biden-Burisma bribery scandal.
Sure.
Would you fire Christopher Wray?
Day one.
Day one.
Day one. Look, the American people have lost confidence in the Department of Justice. They just have. I hear it everywhere that I go.
Yep.
And we're a nation of laws and not of men, as the old ancient phrase is.
Yeah.
We have to restore confidence.
The neutral
in
application
equal
of the
treatment
law.
under the law.
Yes.
I think that means the entire top floor of the Department of Justice.
Right.
You just clean house.
And the FBI.
And the FBI.
And the CIA.
All of it.
Yep.
And then what you do is, here, if I'm President of the United States, you and I know each other well. You know my standards. I would go looking for men and women of unimpeachable integrity, people that Republicans and Democrats would look to and say, those are people who are committed to the law and to the fair administration of justice. You install those people and you begin to change the culture and restore confidence in the Department of Justice and in American justice.
No, thank you for that. Well said. Thank you for that. Meanwhile, poll after poll shows that apart from all these judicial proceedings, the biggest issues are going to be pocketbook issues, economic issues. We looked at a poll, the top three issues, inflation, economy, and jobs. That was 50% of the poll. The next closest issue was crime at 15% of the poll. Pocketbook issues, Mike Pence. What can you say?
Well, nobody's talking about it, first and foremost. I mean, it's one of the frustrating things about these controversies that swirl around Washington, D.C. and become the preoccupation of much of the rest of the media.
And the meathead press goes right after the wrong stuff.
Of course they do, and it's all they're talking about. But I got to tell you, the day this story broke, I was in New Hampshire, and I was walking through Mary Ann's Diner. You know how many people talk to me about this story as opposed to how much their family is struggling in this economy? Nobody. I mean, look, inflation a year ago was at a 40-year high. Wall Street here in New York is celebrating that it only went up 4%. And like that's some sort of an achievement. It's still twice the goal of the Fed. And it's like saying I gained 50 pounds last year. I only gained 20 pounds this year. So we're making real progress.
You look great.
We're not tackling.
No weight on you. You look great.
It was an analogy.
Sorry, I'm a beg your pardon.
But look, what we've got to do is go back to the policies that our administration, with tremendous counsel from you and our economic team, drove. And that was, we got to make the Trump-Pence tax cuts permanent. That's got to happen in 2025. We got to get back to rolling back 2-for-1 regulations for every one regulation on the books. We got to unleash American energy. We got to secure our border just to restore confidence to the American people. But at the end of the day, we've got to get back to the policies that created a growing American economy. And we got to be talking about it, Larry, because that's where the American people are living every day. And they know that Joe Biden and the Democrats in Congress have unleashed a gusher of spending in Washington, D.C. that drove this inflation, that's driving into their families' budgets and raising the cost of groceries and gasoline and everything else. And we've got to come forward with positive solutions.
Real weekly wages have fallen 26 straight months. We just did the numbers last night after the 26 straight.
I promise you, the
and
American
people are furious at that. Middle class, blue collars, the people that we won over, they're just furious at that.
The American people know that. This economy is struggling. The American people are struggling. The world is becoming more dangerous almost by the day. It's the reason why my wife and I, after a lot of prayerful consideration, decided to step forward to seek the Republican nomination for President of the United States, because I believe, I'm proud of the record we had the last 4 years, but I'm determined that by staying on the course of that strong conservative record and agenda that's delivered victories for our party and the American people over the last 50 years, we can bring this country back bigger, stronger, more prosperous, more secure than ever before.
So you are eminently qualified. You have strong character, as I said at the beginning. You are a supply-sider, pro-growth guy, limited government capitalist. You're a strong Christian, social conservatism. You have all these amazing qualifications, seriously. And I've known you, close to 25 years now. But you're stuck at 6 or 7% in every poll for the past 2 years. What's your path here? What's your path to the presidency?
Well, I've only been at it for 6 days, so give me a little time. And
well, not exactly. I know that's technically true. I know that's technically true.
We've seen a lot of enthusiasm since.
But everybody knows who you are. You have good name recognition.
Great. But you know what? You know my answer to that?
Again, strong character, which is going to be very important. But you're at 6 to 7%. How do you get out of that?
You know what I've come to realize is I'm well known, but I'm not known well.
No.
I think the Mike Pence that you know is not necessarily well known around the country. So part of our opportunity, I think, is to tell our whole story, tell how it wasn't just my years as a loyal vice president, you know, loyal until my loyalty to the Constitution required otherwise. But I was a governor that balanced budgets, that doubled the educational choice program that was already the largest in the country, stood for life and for economic freedom. And then, when you and I first met, when I won that Man of the Year award in Human Events magazine, it was because I was battling against the big spenders in the Republican Party. You know, I was leading House conservatives.
You voted against the bank bailouts, by the way. Which was something at the time.
A lot of people think I helped lead the fight against the Wall Street bailout, as well as the Medicare prescription drug entitlement, as well as No Child Left Behind. And I'm proud of that record. But what we want to do is introduce the people of Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and across the country to the whole record, because I really do believe that the American people come to know us for who we are. I have a feeling they're going to see in us, and I say this with deep humility, but they're going to see in us the experience, the proven record that is precisely what we need, not just to lead our party, but to lead our country all the way back and then some.
It is a great pleasure to see you, as it always is. When I was in the White House, you always gave me support. You always gave me faith-based support, and I really appreciated that. Best to Karen Pence, and thank you for coming on. Good luck on the campaign trail.